Joe Biden couldn't have made it clearer in a disturbing speech that was completely suppressed by the mainstream media this week. The US election for President of the United States is rigged. The establishment have selected their president, and by hook or by crook, he will be re-elected. The Democrats are not interested in democracy. They are interested in communism, and that means power consolidation at the most central of all levels. They have shamelessly rigged the primary election against insurgent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They have rigged the mainstream media. And by weaponizing the justice system, they have rigged the presidential election against the most popular candidate by far, President Trump. And now Biden has come out and admitted their master plan in a disturbing speech, completely covered up and censored by the mainstream media. According to Joe Biden, we are now at an inflection point of the kind that only comes along every few generations. Pay close attention to his choice of words here. Biden has delivered a very subtly altered version of the Illuminati's creed, out of chaos comes order, before he finally comes right out and says it. The New World Order is here.
I think, my mother had an expression, out of everything terrible, something good will come if you look hard enough for it. I think this presents us with some significant opportunities to make some real changes. We are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy. Not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there, and we've got to lead it.
Chalk this one up as yet another vindication for so-called conspiracy theorists, who've been warning about the New World Order for generations, while the mainstream media dismissed them as cranks and tinfoil hat-wearing kooks. And now, laying the groundwork for the New World Order, Biden is engaging in the tactics of a weak, deeply unpopular and unelected president, weaponizing the justice system against his political rival. This is globalist fascism on display. After this quick break, we'll reveal how the elites are planning to rig the US election to make doubly sure the 2016 results can never be repeated. But first, an important word from our sponsor. The elites have a perfect frontman in Joe Biden. The mainstream media are working overtime to rewrite history, but it's worth remembering that the man has been known as a fraud and barefaced liar for decades.
Biden may have more explaining to do.
The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
And I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
Joe Biden was victimized by the truth.
Bye-bye Biden. He may not know it yet, but I think this is going to be very difficult for him to recover.
Is Joe Biden dead meat, yes or no?
I think so.
Bob?
It's in terminal condition.
Terminal. Eleanor?
Yes, unless he comes in third in Iowa.
Morton?
Dying.
I say dead.
While the mainstream media are now attempting to shame anybody who demands free and fair elections as an election denier, here is a flashback to Biden telling the Sandy Hook families that Al Gore really won the election in 2000.
We talk about the accidents of history. Had Al Gore not that, well, characterized. Had Al Gore won that election, I think he won it anyway. Had Al Gore won that election, a lot would be different. We'd still have that in place.
Talk about piling deceit upon deceit. But that's nothing compared to what Biden and his globalist cronies are up to now, as they prepare to launch another vast voter fraud campaign to usher humanity into the New World Order. According to Klaus Schwab's right-hand man Yuval Noah Harari, the elites have an upgrade on Smartmatic and Dominion voting systems, and will use AI instead to control the next US election.
The next election in the US, for instance, in November 2024, is likely to be run to a large extent by AI. That the AI will even produce, again, the political speeches, the propaganda in the networks will no longer be produced by human beings, but by AI.
How are the elites planning to use AI to rig the next election? Harari has an answer for that too. They're planning to surveil and monitor the unwitting masses, in the same manner as Harari's heroes, Stalin, Mao and Hitler.
To survey, to monitor everybody all the time. Surveillance, and monitor even what's happening inside their body. Yes. Like you think about dictators in history and emperors in history, I don't know, people like Stalin or Mao or Hitler, they always wanted to follow everybody all the time, to know what each citizen is doing and even thinking and feeling.
According to Schwab, genetic editing of humanity will be necessary for the elites to position themselves as the unelected supreme leaders of the world, ushering humanity into the fourth industrial revolution.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing, it changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed. Yeah. And of course this has a big impact on your identity.
The elites are terrified of allowing normal everyday people like you and me to elect a president and government. This is why presidents have been selected for generations, not elected. And we've got the receipts to prove it. WikiLeaks emails from Barack Obama's personal email account reveal that the Bush administration contacted the future president multiple times before the election, secretly organizing the transition of power. The 2008 transition had gone down in history as surprisingly smooth. Martha Joint Kumar, in a book about the transition, said it was the best in anyone's memory, in part because 9/11 made everyone recognize that a transition is a fragile time. But WikiLeaks emails released in 2016 raised serious questions about why it was so smooth, and strongly suggest Obama was selected by the shadow government, rather than elected by the people. The most eye-catching email in the leak contains a message from John Podesta about an invitation from President George W. Bush to the president-elect. Should that have read President-select? Podesta sent the email to Obama before the election result was even known. But it gets even worse. The emails show a transition plan was being worked on long before the 2008 election had even taken place. According to an attached memo in one of the emails, Obama was already discussing his transition to office with members of the Bush administration, including then Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, prior to the election. As you have observed in your interactions with Secretary Paulson, he is apparently eager to involve you and your transition team extensively in his policy choices following the election. Another attached memo acknowledges that it's unusual to start the transition process so soon. We are now at a point of deciding how to staff economic policy during the transition, who should be the point of contact with Treasury, and how to blend the transition and campaign economic policy talent. Normally these decisions could be made after the election, and ideally after the selection of a national economic advisor, but of course these are not normal times. Not normal times. Perhaps not in 2008, but now 15 years later, it seems nothing has changed. What was not normal in 2008 has become very much the norm in 2023. Thanks to WikiLeaks and the unprecedented peek behind the curtains of power they granted us, the shadow government has been exposed to the light. 2008 wasn't a smooth transition of power, it was silky smooth power consolidation. The election was rigged from the outset and Obama was selected by the establishment. Trump's victory in 2016 was an aberration. The establishment had the entire deck of cards stacked against him, including the media. And yet he still won. They couldn't risk this happening again in 2020, so they changed the way they rigged the election. Gone are the days of simply relying on propaganda and fake news from CNN. We now live in an era of stuffed drop boxes, mules, rigged algorithms, and irregular voting counts taking place after midnight in key battleground states. Joe Biden and his handlers at the World Economic Forum are right about one thing. We are at a critical moment in history, and the stakes couldn't be higher.